So I'm very briefly going to tell you a very little bit about what shape energy is, and you can read all about it and or ask during coffee. But I want to have a focus today on what can the social sciences and humanities bring to policy, and what do the social sciences and humanities need from policy. So first of all, what is Shape Energy? Shape Energy is a platform which is funded by the Horizon 2020 program, which is running for almost 2 years now. February will be the end of it, and in January we will have a very big conference here in Brussels, so you're all invited to that conference. The main focus of this Shape Energy platform was actually to bring together the variety of social sciences and humanities out there with policy, with practice, and try to figure out how these can be more collaborative in the way they work, and what that might do for policy. So one of the outputs of our Shape Energy platform is actually that we are feeding into the European Commission's Innovation and Research agenda, which is a long-term agenda going beyond Horizon 2020, but focuses on the work program Horizon Europe as well. And we are in discussion with the Commission as to what the social sciences and humanities can bring and need. So what can they actually bring? Well, we've heard already some of the things that social sciences and humanities can bring, but those are very much also the usual suspect type of things, such as involve a behavioral insight team into your policy, and everything will be okay because people will behave more desirably. Well, I would like to broaden that perspective a little bit and say that what the social sciences and humanities actually can bring is that they can bring the humans back into the center of policy. And when I say humans, I say explicitly humans and not behavior or practices, because and also explicitly, you haven't heard me say anything about energy, because humans, they don't do energy, they don't do energy efficiency, they do a lot of other things like living in healthy buildings or working in healthy buildings, and that's actually the way that you should look at it. So social sciences and humanities, those are on the one hand the social sciences like psychology, sociology, anthropology, etc., and the humanities, which are actually quite often forgotten. Also, when you take a look at eceee summer study, there is very little coming from the humanities side, which is a different perspective, also focusing much more on fairness, equity, justice, things like that. It's coming up, especially with the sufficiency theme that we have next year. But the social sciences, clearly, they are much more, well, respected already in a way. They are the type of sciences that focus on behavior or practices, depending on the theory that you adhere to, or attitudes, etc., not only of humans, but also of the system and all the institutions, etc., working in it. So what can those social sciences and humanities actually bring to policy? Well, first of all, they can provide, and this sounds very instrumental, but that is one of the things that they can actually provide, but in a different way, lessons on how to actually alter human behavior / practices to more desirable ends. But what they do as well is they question what desirability is. So to whom is it desirable? What does that mean? What are the trade-offs, etc., etc., is very much what the social science and humanities can bring to policy as well. So what they actually do, they bring to the front discussions about fairness, about justice, about trade-offs, because of course there will always be losers and winners in whatever transition there is out there, but we need to know them, and we need to know what the trade-offs are that are being made, also by policy, and designing certain policies. Who benefits, who doesn't, is that a problem or not, why, how can we solve it, etc. And that has an impact on acceptability, because if the process is more fair, more transparent, the likelihood of actually getting more people engaged and willing to think about changing the way they do things increases. Another thing is, and Kevin already touched upon it a little bit, a lot of the models out there, they look very complex to people like me, but they are actually and I'm exaggerating a little, perhaps very simplistic, because they don't really embrace the complexity of real life. They kick out what is difficult to model, which is everything the social sciences and humanities are about. I hope I'm not stepping on toes. Well, actually, I should, right? It's my role today. So, taking the social sciences and humanities into the policy process actually at least opens up the possibility of embracing this complexity when you're designing your policy. That also means that a different set of knowledge might be relevant. Not only the techno-economic type of knowledge, the behavioral economics type of knowledge, but a lot of other disciplines that are out there that have very relevant knowledge, but also knowledge that is not academic and that is not scientific in that sense, but which might be very relevant also to include. So it's about opening up to more multi-stakeholder processes. What this allows policymakers to do, even on a very local level, for example, city planning or building planning, if you call it like that, is actually integrate insights on acceptability, behavior, the complexity, etc., etc. And what that results in is actually a better understanding of, for example, the performance gap which happens in buildings, but it happens also on a systemic level. It actually allows us to understand that people don't behave stupidly in buildings, but that buildings might be designed stupidly. Another toe, I'm sorry. So what this accumulates to is that we might actually contribute with the social sciences and humanities to better expectations of how energy efficiency measures actually change the life, not the behavior, the life of people, and what that means, and if that is acceptable, under which conditions, etc. And what you will soon find is that if you want to do this, and I thought the example of the buildings 2030 was really beautiful in that sense. It also means policy needs to be more holistic. So you need to, for healthy buildings, to include also the health sciences and the health policies, the building policies, the energy policies, perhaps social welfare policies, etc. More holistic, systemic policy. And what the social sciences and humanities can help achieve is actually assess policy and its impact, especially also from the humanities side of it, deliver tools to monitor processes in a more realistic way and model them, in a sense, help optimize energy policy. To actually help policy get the most out of its instruments, because I'm not saying that the instruments out there that policy is using are not working. I'm saying they could be working much better if they took account of the social science and humanities knowledge out there. But there is, and that's why we are here today also, there is a performance gap in the sense of getting the social science and humanities taken up by policy and used in design of policy on the local, regional, national, international level. So that means there needs to be something more also in place to help SSH perform better. And these are the things that the research and innovation agenda developed by Shape Energy is addressing amongst many other issues. First of all, there needs to be more explicit inclusion of the social science and humanities in funding opportunities, because if you take a good look how much money goes to the SSH disciplines, it's a meager 4% at the moment. When there are calls out there from a policy arena, for example, from the European Commission, what should be included is actually a clear call to actually demonstrate what kind of social science and humanities you are including, excluding, why, and how that impacts the project that you're doing. And if there are critical social science and humanities issues, which I would say are in every single technology development trajectory, for example, political, ethical, historical, cultural, etc. Well, actually, they need to be included in those type of energy projects as well, which is, again, not happening very much. it doesn't only mean that the social science and humanities need to be involved end of pipe or as a communication work package leader, but that they actually should feature in the project with theories, models, concepts, etc. And even more, what you also very often see is that those type of issues, if they are already put forth by projects, they're not being performed by social science and humanities experts. Well, I think that speaks for itself. It needs to be done by social science and humanities experts. On the evaluation side of projects and impact of policy, for example, this energy, social science and humanities expertise needs to be represented more on these type of evaluation panels, for example. But that also means that when you are evaluating and monitoring projects, you need to be able to include those more qualitative indicators, not only those that turn into well, monetized or percentage type of output, but actually those more qualitative indicators. And in the evaluation, there needs to be more reflection on actually what happened and what that means for the monitoring and evaluation of these type of projects, especially when we're talking about integrating social science and humanities with STEM disciplines, which is a very interesting process. We need to learn more about what happens, what works, what doesn't, where, when, why, etc. And that's more or less what Shape Energy would like to bring to the table today as food for thought for the panel.